In my summation, predictive analytics is the next big thing. What we have done so far has given us the success that we have achieved so far, but that's not going to assure us future of what we're going to see in the next few years. That's definitely going to call for a very different mindset, a very different skill ability of HR professionals, being comfortable with data, with statistics, the ability to look through the ambiguous data and plethora of data that will come your way is going to be a critical skill that an HR professional is going to need to survive. And I also do see a major change happening in the way HR has been handled up until now. Today, up until now, you would always have students from the social sciences background moving into HR. I'm seeing a major change today. We have a lot of technologists who are moving into HR and vice versa. So you should also have the realization that in the future there will be an expectation that HR will be expected to move into the business and take up that responsibility. So I think there are a good number of examples in the industry today. Dr. Santrupt Misra is a standing example of how an HR professional can move into the business in a very seamless fashion and actually set an example for many of us at this point in time. So I definitely see that major change happening for each one of us. I think that question would have been answered a million times up until now, and I'm sure there's a lot of data on the net that can qualify that, could give you a better answer on that. But my view is definitely a lot of change in values. These two populations or these two generations have been born in very different times. A time, Gen X, largely grown up in a time of scarcity, largely at a time when the nation was going through a lot of changes, has probably seen the liberalization era of this country. Gen Y, relatively grown up or brought up or born into an environment of plenty, and hence the struggle of self-security was never a concern as opposed to what the Gen X had to basically encounter. And so very different times that these two entities or these two generations have grown up in, and that's definitely a reflection of how they carry themselves out. And that's where it goes back to what I said earlier on, that it's with regard to the new generation, the Gen Y and the Gen Zs as I call them, is where by the virtue of growing up in a very secured environment, in an environment where things are available by granted in terms of information, in terms of a better economic status, people will venture out to do something really radical with their lives. They will no longer take up a view with regard to, I'm going to retire in a given area of work. You will definitely see a lot of disruptions in terms of how careers are going to be maneuvered in the future. That's going to be the major game changer for us, and we have to be ready for that.
Talking of
I definitely see that impact happening across, because it's more with regard to adapting to the workforce that you're trying to target. And coming back to the point, the target is definitely the Gen Ys and the Gen Z generations that are going to follow. And they are the most technologically savvy generation that we have come across so far. And so with that said, it's more come up as a necessity than as an invention by any other reason. And I hence do believe that today recruiters and HR organizations and even CEOs are realizing that it's very, very important for them to wake up to the new technology trends and look at how they could leverage social in a very strong way to connect to the prospective employees. And that's actually a survival game, as I would call it, rather than as a passion to just toe your line on. I think there's definitely a necessity of the day.